On our joint final word tonight, we kick and take as we try to make sense of the events around funding of education in our country. For the last few weeks, we have come across countless heartbreaking stories of students facing a bleak future and families wallowing in debt and poverty. We have been moved not just by the tough choices they face, but also the sheer helplessness of those from whom help is expected.
Indeed, you see, a substantial amount of our national aspirations are colourfully captured in our Constitution. Article 43, for instance, promises a country where every person has the right to education. Further down the pages, Article 53 pledges that every child has the right to free and compulsory basic education. But the reality on the ground is that these aspirations often fall short.
Indeed, the rubber of our aspirations meet the road of our realities in annual cycles defined by the release of national examination results. Whenever exam results are released, some of the country's KCPE best performers make a very short journey from joy to sorrow, as good grades turn into nightmares due to lack of school fees. Academic victors quickly turn into beggars as the search for assistance follows in earnest.
In one instance, an aspiring Form 1 student begged for even donations of as little as 5 shillings for them to join the high school of their choice. The humiliation of begging, the burden of responsibility on young shoulders, an instant indictment of the adults and organized authorities to whom these exam candidates should not be mere statistics that turn into needy persons upon the release of the exam results.
And so a conversation among adults, both persons and institutions, must ensue and progress with openness and deep reflection. First, in November 2023, 1.4 million candidates sat the last KCPE examination. It was the largest cohort of the 39-year-old national assessment. For 8 years, majority of those learners had gone through school on state-funded learning under the free primary education program. The assumption that should be made here is that the state was aware of the existence of each of the 1.4 million candidates way before the examination results were released.
And yes, it should also be assumed that the state was aware that there are learners who could not afford to join high schools due to their economic backgrounds. It is this awareness that should have further informed the conversation around provision of bursaries, an exercise that has evidently displayed all signs of the absence of orderly structures.
First, the Ministry of Education graciously announced over 14,000 scholarships for the most needy students. Then, in a most welcome move, members of Parliament have been busy the past 2 weeks issuing letters of support to learners in form of bursaries. We take note that in several constituencies, all learners in day schools get a few thousands of shillings to support their education, at least those that fill the application forms. From 4,000 shillings per learner in Tetu constituency to 3,900 shillings per learner in Mbeere North constituency.
We also take note that learners in boarding schools get anything from 5,000 shillings per learner per year, with select few getting finance for the full fees. But those are bursaries from the CDF kitty. The law provides that they should not exceed 40% for each constituency.
Now let's do the math for a moment. In the current financial year, CDF was allocated 53.5 billion shillings. 40% of that would be just over 21 billion shillings. Now, all learners in public secondary schools receive government financing of 22,000 shillings per learner. In the current financial year, 65.4 billion shillings has been allocated.
And we appreciate that still there are families that cannot raise the balance of the fees required. Apart from the CDF money, we understand that women representatives too have a kitty. So do county governors, all geared towards easing the burden on families and honoring the dignity of innocent children whose only desire is an education.
Now, just this week, the Principal Secretary in charge of Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, observed that there is need to centralize the issuance of bursaries. Various educationists have expressed the importance of having a system where the issuance of bursaries can be traced, a system that enhances accountability so that each deserving learner gets their share of support based on need.
We observe that the current system as being implemented has major risks. Risks of duplication of bursaries, abuse, and even theft. If every person that applies for bursary gets, what stops anyone from faking admission? And when a constituency allocates bursary to every learner in an institution within that constituency, how do they ensure that the same learner is not allocated assistance by their home MP?
Get us right. We support a non-discriminatory process of allocation of bursary. But is it possible to streamline that process to weigh the magnitude of need so that we don't have learners asking for 5 shillings of assistance? But then education takes nearly 30% of the country's budget. For this year alone, the allocation is 628 billion shillings. That is without counting the school fees paid by parents, scholarships given by both public and private institutions, and without the bursaries channeled through constituencies and the counties.
Why spend so much money and still disadvantage the most needy, to an extent that the government now speaks of a mop-up of Form 1 students, 300,000 of whom are yet to enroll? Can we give the full meaning of Article 43, paragraph of the Constitution, paragraph F of the Constitution, that every person has a right to education, and Article 53, that every child has the right to free and compulsory basic education? And that is what Joint Take, Kicker, and Sense tonight.